China has nearly 3,000 county-level administrative units, home to nearly 500 million people. In some of these places, streets are lined with luxury cars worth 300,000 yuan, and new districts are built more grandly than provincial capitals. Yet beneath this glossy surface, an invisible slow-motion collapse has quietly begun. In recent years, more and more young Chinese people have started fantasizing about one thing. Should I just leave the big cities and move back to my hometown county? In the big cities, rent is suffocating. Layoffs happen at the drop of a hat. And after age 35, your resume disappears into a black hole. At the same time, short videos are full of beautiful scenes of life back in the county. Sleeping in until you wake up naturally, taking afternoon walks by the river, and grabbing barbecue with old classmates in the evening. It seems that as long as you leave Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, or Shenzhen, life can instantly become cheap, stable, and dignified again. But the real question is the county town still that safe hometown that can catch you when you fall? Why do so many people who actually return discover that finding a job is even harder, and they have even less dignity than in the big cities? Why do small counties with almost no industry still have luxury cars, high-end restaurants, and new apartments selling for 7,000 to 8,000 yuan per square meter? On the streets, why are the new districts getting more beautiful while shops on the old streets keep closing and transferring one after another? Where exactly is the entrance to the county town wealth pool? Today, let's talk about the real crisis hidden beneath the respectable facade of China's county towns. What you think is a retreat might actually be a gentler, quieter, and much harder to escape trap. The first illusion to shatter. The mirage of wealth in county towns. Some third, fourth, or even fifth and sixth tier counties have no decent industrial parks on the map, no high-tech, no advanced manufacturing, and certainly no internet companies. Yet in these places, the level of high-end consumption is jaw-dropping. Private rooms with 2,000 to 3,000 yuan banquets are booked daily. Liquor stores sell cases of premium baijiu and cartons of expensive cigarettes without worry. And in building material markets, locals casually sign orders worth hundreds of thousands for luxury renovations. Where does this money come from? Locals have a term for the county economy, civil servant economy, but the more accurate name is fiscal economy. And civil servant economy hits the nail on the head, instantly exposing the core secret of county wealth. Here, civil servants should be understood in the broadest sense. Staff in government bureaus, public school teachers, doctors and nurses in county hospitals, police and judicial officers, city investment platform employees, plus workers in state monopolies like power companies, tobacco firms, and state-owned banks. They may not all be official civil servants, but they all eat from the government budget. Including their families, they make up a very large share of the local permanent population. While small local factories can only pay 2,000 to 3,000 yuan a month and can't even afford social insurance, this group enjoys the highest fixed salaries, the best housing provident funds, and the most complete benefits in the county, and often the only group capable of high consumption and bold cross-cycle spending. The logic of this economy is simple. Local tax revenue is pitifully low. Most of the money in the Finance Bureau's accounts comes from central and provincial transfer payments. This money flows into the treasury and is then distributed through budgets to those who live off public funds. After they receive their salaries, their spending on food, housing, and transport stays local, keeping consumption within the county. In this way, fiscal funds complete a secondary distribution on the county streets. Some might say that migrant workers and business people also bring money back. Of course they do. The county's sudden liveliness during Spring Festival largely comes from them bringing outside earnings home. But that money is mostly seasonal and family-oriented, used for building houses, buying cars, hosting banquets, and paying mortgages. It creates a short burst of prosperity during the holiday. But it doesn't hold up over time. What truly sustains the restaurants, liquor stores, building material markets, and training centers year-round, is the consumption of those who live off the government budget. Without their spending leading the way, many of those shops couldn't even cover their monthly rent. So the bustle on the streets is essentially propped up by fiscal blood transfusions. This is not a self-sustaining market economy, but a greenhouse highly dependent on civil servant consumption. Once higher-level funding tightens, those in the system feel the chill first. Quarterly performance bonuses stop, holiday benefits are cancelled, and salaries are delayed. The only group with real spending power in the county starts to worry and immediately tightens their wallets. They stop booking 2,000 yuan banquets, stop buying or renovating houses, and stop changing cars frequently. This consumption shrinkage quickly ripples out, hitting the local economy. Liquor stores go half a month without selling a case of premium baijiu. Wedding companies slash prices to get orders. Building material markets turn cold, and carpenters and masons go weeks without work. Forced to idle back in the villages. This is a domino effect collapse. The troubles in China's county economies often don't start with small vendors at the bottom but with fiscal contraction at the top. When the upstream water dries up, the downstream vendors and craftsmen can only sit in their empty shops wondering where all the customers went, never quite understanding how they died. Why industrial upgrading can't save most county towns? Some might ask, aren't local officials stupid? Of course they know relying on transfusions isn't sustainable, so they try to develop their own industries. Indeed, every county has been shouting the same slogans: industrial upgrading and investment attraction. The idea sounds good, but in practice, these words have become a cognitive trap in most counties. Government work reports are packed with trendy terms. One county plans to invest tens of billions in a new energy vehicle parts base. A remote county talks about building low-altitude economy aircraft manufacturing, and another wants a leading big data computing center. Reading these reports, you think every mountain valley is about to birth world-class tech companies. Reality is different. If you visit the high-tech industrial park on the edge of your hometown county, the entrance is grand, but inside you'll find rows of neat standard factories standing empty, lifeless. Some gates have rusty locks and windows covered in dust. These are classic ghost zones. The reason is straightforward. Companies with real core technology won't move factories to remote counties with poor transportation, talent shortages, and incomplete supply chains. Everyone knows what kind of enterprises actually get attracted. Ones that hop between counties, living off government subsidies. These bosses are shrewd. They exploit local officials' desperate need for political achievements, demanding free rent and tens of millions in equipment subsidies. Officials thrilled, pour in fiscal funds. The enterprises take the land, mortgage it for big bank loans, hire a few temporary workers, and fire up old equipment when inspection teams arrive. Workers put on uniforms for a show. Once the rent-free period ends and subsidies are exhausted, the boss loads up valuable equipment at night and vanishes to repeat the scam in the next desperate county, leaving local government with millions in new debt and empty factories. What about the bank loans? They were mortgaged so the bank can take the land. When industry fails, some counties turn to cultural tourism and e-commerce live streaming. Today, it's barbecue live streams. Tomorrow, Harbin-style potatoes. No matter how tight finances are, they spend hundreds of millions renovating a rundown old street, building fake antique structures, hanging red lanterns, inviting influencers to shoot videos, and declaring a featured ancient town night market. But online traffic has no loyalty. Tourists come for the weekend hype, take photos for their social circles, and head back to big cities on Sunday night. This low-end check-in consumption can generate stable taxes. Selling barbecue or small scenic tickets won't fund a public hospital or repay tens of billions in city investment debt. When the hype dies, the expensively built homestays and night market stalls become deserted. Most e-commerce live streaming doesn't solve the root problem. Either you see a remote county farmer sell tens of thousands of pounds of sweet potatoes in one live session and think the internet will bring riches. But real profits are slim. To get traffic, you pay advertising fees to platforms in Hangzhou or Beijing, give 30 to 40% commissions to top streamers, and slash prices to the lowest on the entire internet. Most profits are sucked away by platforms and big influencers. The local jobs created are mostly ants or junior high graduates, sitting in warehouses earning around 3,000 yuan a month. Taping boxes all day. This cheap labor model won't create a consumer middle class. The real fiscal predicament of county towns is far worse than most imagine. A report from Southwestern University of Finance and Economics, 2025 Provincial, Municipal, and County Fiscal Conditions, analyzed 2,774 county-level regions. Nationwide, the conclusion: the average fiscal self-sufficiency rate of county-level regions is only 38%. In simple terms, your family spends 10,000 yuan a month, but earns only 3,800. The remaining 6,200 must come from parents or borrowing. Most Chinese counties live exactly like this. Local taxes cover less than 40% of expenses. The rest relies on transfer payments and city investment platforms borrowing externally. In good times, the surface stays shiny, but when any link breaks, the whole fiscal machine falters. In recent years, the most critical link has snapped: land sales, the biggest revenue source for counties over the past 20 years. People are no longer willing to buy at high prices. Ministry of Finance data shows national land sale revenue in 2024 fell to 4.87 trillion yuan, a 16% plunge year-on-year. If it were only lower revenue, they could tighten belts, but past debts carry rigid interest payments. In 2024, local government debt interest payments surged to 1.29 trillion yuan, up 8.8%. Revenue down 16%. Interest up 8.8%. This scissors gap is lethal. In the first quarter of 2025, land revenue continued falling 15.9%, while interest rose another 18%. This cannot be sustained. A typical example: in Guizhou's Dushan County, a poor county with annual fiscal revenue under 1 billion yuan, debt ballooned to over 40 billion. It would take more than 40 years of zero spending to repay without counting interest. They even built the so-called world's tallest water tower, now abandoned in a valley. What about transfer payments? The higher levels won't let counties starve, right? But interregional fiscal transfusions are under growing pressure. More places need blood, and the gaps are widening. After the real estate downturn, many provinces saw their land finance collapse, increasing dependence on transfers. The number of regions bleeding fiscally is rising, while the donors remain few. Coastal provinces may hit their own limits, and the central government must juggle debt resolution, social security, and defense, potentially constraining transfers. When that happens, the first places to run dry won't be the stronger coastal cities but ordinary counties, at the very end of the fiscal chain, with no self-sustaining ability. The debt resolution efforts are just a temporary bandage. The government issues special bonds to swap high-interest hidden debts for longer-term, lower-interest official ones. It's like giving a patient in hemorrhagic shock a hemostatic injection to stop immediate death. But it only postpones the problem. It doesn't solve how to develop real earning industries to support all these people. If this core issue isn't resolved, the chronic fiscal bleeding is irreversible. This bleeding doesn't just affect daily consumption, it shakes the very foundation of the county. Its key high schools, county high schools in the past. County high schools was sacred. Of every 10 students from the county who got into top universities, at least 9.5 came from there. It gathered the next generation of intellectual elites, no matter how remote your village or how ordinary your parents. If your child entered the county's key middle school or advanced class, neighbors would joke that your family was about to produce a literary star. During National College Entrance Examination, score release days, big red banners at the school gate listed how many got into Tsinghua or Peking University, and how many crossed the first-tier line. County high schools gave every bottom-tier family a clear sense of security. If your child worked hard, there was a chance to cross classes and study alongside big city kids. But go back now, and that vitality is gone. Parents with any money desperately send their children to prefecture-level cities or provincial capitals, even paying tens of thousands in borrowing fees. It's not that kids are dumber or teachers are lazy. The real reason is that big city elite schools have launched a talent raid on small towns. First, they poach top students. Private elite schools in prefecture cities or super high schools in provincial capitals send recruitment teams before the high school entrance exam, offering free tuition, living stipends, and promises of Tsinghua Peking University experimental classes to the top scorers. Few can refuse. As a result, the top 50 or even 100 brightest students in each county are swept away before the exams. Second, backbone teachers. Big city schools offer several times the salary, housing subsidies, and family relocation packages. County schools with only 38% fiscal self-sufficiency and shrinking performance bonuses can't compete. Experienced master teachers and subject leaders leave in droves, leaving teaching offices empty, with good students gone and good teachers leaving. County high schools' decline becomes a vicious, irreversible cycle. Note, this talent siphoning isn't new. County high schools once did the same to township schools. Now, it's their turn. The students taken early are still from ordinary county families and can still go to top universities, but only a few dozen top talents per county benefit. The hundreds of next-tier students who used to thrive in county high schools now stay in a depleted school with fewer strong teachers and changing school culture. Their opportunities are visibly narrowing. Moreover, the screening point has moved earlier to the middle school entrance exam around age 12 to 13. At that age, gaps in family resources, parental knowledge, and tutoring are far wider than in high school. Wealthy families start planning from elementary school. Ordinary families are already a full step behind before the real race begins. In recent years, the number of county high school students entering elite universities has visibly dropped. Schools that once produced Tsinghua Peking admits and dozens of Night 8.5 students now celebrate wildly even for a handful of first-tier university admissions. When a place has no money, people can live modestly. As long as the next generation still has a chance to escape through education, the place retains vitality. Chinese people say studying changes destiny and value education more than almost any other culture. But once even this path is cut off, those left behind fall into inescapable fatalism. No matter how hard they try, their children seem destined to repeat their parents' lives. The future is hollowed out at the root. So back to the original question, should ordinary young people return to the county? Before packing up, ask yourself a fundamental question. Are you going back to share the cake or to wait for the leftovers? In recent years, a popular online term captures this perfectly. County Town Brahmins. It refers to the ready-made vested interest group, the tiny circle at the very top of the pyramid. This group is small, maybe a few hundred core families, including the county's 4 major leadership teams, heads of major bureaus, core judicial and police officials, principals and directors of key schools, hospital deans and department heads, plus a few big local bosses who regularly win government projects. Within this circle, a bureau chief's wife might be a bank president, a principal's son-in-law, a finance section chief, and a hospital dean's child newly in the court. Through mutual help and marriages, they weave an impenetrable network that outsiders can't break into. In big cities, education and personal ability can get you a good job and even class mobility. In the county, that system is useless. Small places run on bloodlines and connections. Job openings and project bids are already divided at dinner tables long before public announcements. Even a top university graduate from an ordinary family returns as an outsider, unable to even find the threshold. Yet, even the county town Brahmins are starting to feel anxious. In the land finance boom years, city investment platforms and public institutions expanded wildly. Directors could place sons in power companies and principals' daughters in city investment firms. There was enough meat for everyone, and the atmosphere was harmonious. But now finances are tight. Higher authorities have ordered headcount freezes or reductions, and non-essential spending is slashed. Positions created for placements are being cleaned out. The pond has suddenly dried up, turning the game from win-win to zero-sum survival struggle. When resources shrink, privileged groups don't voluntarily give up benefits. They make their privileges more closed and exclusive. Good positions that once had the pretense of competition now go entirely to insiders. The civil service quota has become the only shelter. The Brahmins don't have enough even for themselves, let alone outsiders. For ordinary families, passing the civil service exam back home is nearly impossible. Many posted positions were custom-made years ago for someone's daughter. You take the test thinking it's fair, you're just a warm body. Even lower-level Brahmin section chiefs and directors feel suffocated as higher-ups ruthlessly grab resources to protect their own children. In a zero-sum world, everyone is stepping on each other. Class mobility has basically stopped, and the county slowly turns into stagnant water. If even the current Brahmins' children are struggling for positions, what can an ordinary person without background hope to get? If your father is a bureau chief, your uncle in the judicial system, your relative in the monopoly and your family owns several properties, then returning means joining the feast. Even if you slacked in university, family resources will protect you. A phone call at a dinner can land you a high-value public institution position, later convertible to civil servant status. House and car are ready, salary and benefits are clear, and everyone calls you director respectfully. But most ordinary Chinese should ask honestly, does your family have this kind of protective umbrella? If your parents are just honest farmers or run a small shop, you graduated from an ordinary university, have no quota, and no connections, then returning with your bags is not coming home to warmth. You are walking into a low salary, low growth, low dignity gentle trap. What jobs exist outside the system? Most seemingly decent small private firms are family workshops. Boss's wife handles accounts, cousin is supervisor, business relies on personal connections. Salaries are very low, often with only 1 day off or even none per month. Ask about social insurance, and you get looked at like an alien. Work there 5 to 10 years and wages barely rise. You must learn to endure the boss's crude management. Start your own business. Open a milk tea or coffee shop. Prime storefronts on the old commercial street are already locked up by families with resources and connections. Transfer fees and rents are exorbitant. Once open, fire, health, and urban management inspections come in waves. If a connected relative opens the same shop next door, one phone call can shut you down, and you'll never know who you offended. In the county, you're not competing with the market but with invisible networks. Your shop will likely close in months. Deliver food or packages, 4,000 to 5,000 yuan a month, and county living costs are low. It's an option, but this path is also nearly saturated, with limited local population and ongoing outflow. Delivery orders have a clear ceiling. After years of corporate layoffs and returning youth flooding in, the industry is full. Fewer orders, lower hourly rates, no growth, no future. Ultimately, many young people yearning to return aren't drawn to the economic structure. They're nostalgic for their childhood. In memory, home was warm, summer iced watermelon, friends to play with after school. But you forget the key point. The county felt warm because you were a child, and your parents shielded you from all survival pressure. Today, as a 20 or 30-something, adult with no money and no backup, returning means facing a brutally competitive, cold world. Big cities are harsh and exploitative too, with plenty of unfairness. But they have one big advantage. No one cares who your father is. You don't need to prove your father's status before submitting a resume. In a cafe, you pay the same and get the same service as a millionaire. The coldness and detachment of big cities actually protect ordinary people's fragile dignity. Back in the county, that protective shell vanishes instantly. Without a quota or connections, you become completely invisible and marginal. Administrative approvals require 5 or 6 trips without guanxi. Hospital beds go to those with connections while you watch. On blind dates, the first questions are about your parents' jobs, number of quotas in the family, and properties owned. This omnipresent web of relationships is mental torture for someone used to relying on their own hands. By now, it should be clear. Today's Chinese county towns are not facing sudden disasters but standing at a major historical turning point. The 20-year incremental game of borrowing from the future to polish today's facade has ended. We have stepped into the zero-sum era. The decline of China's county towns does not mean they will become ruins. On the surface, daily life continues without dramatic collapse, but their role in Chinese society has fundamentally reversed. In the past 2 or 3 decades, county towns were places that created wealth and allowed easy class mobility. Farmers could buy their first commercial apartment. Smart village kids could use county high schools as a springboard to top universities and change their family's fate. Back then, people believed effort brought hope. Today, that historical phase has ended. Ordinary county towns are irreversibly degenerating into vast old age care centers. Walk through the new park during the day and you'll see rows of 70 and 80-year-olds sitting in the sun. Children who stay finish compulsory education, the better ones immediately for big cities. What remains is a place to house the elderly who won't leave and offer minimal survival support for those who can't compete in the cities. The fall of China's county towns won't be a spectacular explosion. It's more like a long dusk. The sun sets gradually. The sky darkens slowly. While living through it, each day feels the same, but stretch the view to 10 or 20 years, and you suddenly realize the golden era when effort could change destiny has already come to an end. For most ordinary county towns, the real future task is not attracting investment or competing for high-tech industries, but learning to accept reality and contract gracefully. Life must go on, and that's not shameful. Every growth model eventually runs its course and needs to exit. Like a middle-aged person with waning energy who cuts unprofitable side businesses and shrinks an overstretched operation. Counties must do the same. Contraction is not failure. It is the only rational choice when facing reality.